Lieutenant Park Yuna checked her shuttle's engine readings for the third time. The numbers were bad. Very bad. Red warning lights blinked across her control panel like angry eyes. She had maybe 20 minutes of flight time left before the whole system failed. She looked out the window at the frozen planet below. Velhar Prime. Of all the places in the galaxy to have engine trouble, this was the worst. The Velhari were predators, 7 feet tall, covered in black fur, claws that could cut through metal, eyes that glowed in the dark like burning gold. They were the most feared species in the known galaxy, and Yuna was about to land on their doorstep. She sent out a distress signal and began her emergency landing. The shuttle shook and screamed as it entered the atmosphere. Ice and snow covered everything below. There were no cities, no buildings, just endless white and the occasional dark shape of a Velhari hunting party moving across the frozen ground. The shuttle hit the snow hard. Yuna's head slammed against her seat. Stars danced in her vision. When she finally opened her eyes, she saw shapes moving toward her through the blizzard. The Velhari came. They were bigger than she expected. The first one to reach her shuttle stood at least 7.5 feet tall. His fur was completely black, except for silver marks on his face. His eyes glowed amber in the dim light. When he opened his mouth to speak, she saw teeth designed for tearing flesh. "Human," he said. His voice was deep like thunder. "You land on our world without permission." Yuna stood straight. Her heart was beating fast, but she did not let her fear show on her face. Humans had learned long ago that showing fear to Velhari was the worst thing you could do. They were predators. They respected strength, even from small creatures. "My engine failed," she said clearly. "I request shelter while I make repairs. The Galactic Accord allows this." The big Velhari stared at her for a long moment. Behind him, other Velhari gathered. They were all watching her with those golden eyes. She could feel their hunger. To them, she probably looked like food. But then the leader made a sound. It took Yuna a moment to realize he was laughing. "Tiny thing," he said. "You stand before hunters and speak of accords. You have courage. Or you are stupid. Perhaps both." He stepped aside and gestured toward a nearby structure made of ice and stone. "You may stay. Fix your machine. Then leave. Do not wander. Do not hunt. Do not cause trouble." Yuna bowed her head slightly. "Thank you. I will follow your rules." She spent the next 5 days working on her shuttle. The damage was worse than she thought. A critical part had melted, and she needed to build a replacement from whatever material she could find. It was slow work, but Yuna was patient. She had grown up on a farming colony. She knew how to fix things with her hands. During those 5 days, she noticed something strange. She was being watched, not by the adult Velhari. They mostly ignored her. To them, she was beneath notice. A small prey animal that they had agreed not to eat. But someone else was watching. She could feel eyes on her back whenever she worked outside. She heard soft sounds in the snow. She caught glimpses of movement in the shadows. On the third day, she finally saw them. 3 cubs. They were smaller than the adults, maybe 4 feet tall. Their fur was not fully black yet. It was dark gray with lighter patches. Their eyes were the same burning gold as the adults, but there was something different in them. Curiosity. Wonder. They looked at her the way a child might look at a strange new toy. Yuna pretended not to notice them. She continued her work, humming a song her mother used to sing back on the farming colony. It was a simple tune about rain and growing things. The cubs crept closer. By the 4th day, they were barely 10 feet away, hiding behind a pile of ice and peeking at her with huge eyes. Yuna smiled to herself. Predators or not, children were children everywhere. She learned their names by listening to the adult Velhari call for them. The biggest one was Taiho. He was clearly the leader of the small group. He always moved first, and the others followed. The smallest was Myra. She was the most curious and always tried to get closer than the others. The third was Jisiok. He was quiet and watchful, always hanging back and studying everything. On the fifth day, Una finished her repairs. She tested the engine. It worked. She could finally leave this frozen world and return to human space. She packed her tools, loaded her supplies, and prepared for takeoff. Before she left, she stood outside her shuttle one last time. She could see the three cubs watching from their usual hiding spot. Una reached into her pocket and pulled out three small objects: food bars, emergency rations. Humans carried them on all missions. They were nothing special, just compressed nutrients shaped into rectangles. She placed them on the ground where the cubs could see them. "Thank you for keeping me company," she said softly. She knew they probably did not understand her words, but she said them anyway. "Stay safe, little ones." Then she climbed into her shuttle and flew away. She did not check her cargo bay. If she had, she would have discovered that three small stowaways had squeezed themselves between her supply crates. They had been exploring her shuttle all week, sneaking in when she was busy outside. And when they heard her engine start, they had hidden instead of running. Taihoa decided this strange warm creature was interesting. She made sounds that were soft and pleasant. She gave them food without asking for anything. She was not afraid, even though she was small and had no claws. He wanted to know more. Mira had agreed immediately. She wanted to see where the human came from. She wanted to understand. Jisiok had said nothing, but he had followed his siblings into the shuttle. Where they went, he went. That was how it had always been. The shuttle left Velher Prime's atmosphere. The cubs felt strange as the gravity changed. They huddled together in the dark cargo bay, their hearts beating fast. They did not know where they were going. They did not know what they would find, but they knew one thing. They were going to follow the human, and they were going to learn everything she could teach them. 3 light years from Velher Prime, Una heard a strange sound from her cargo bay. Something was moving back there. Something was purring. Una stood in her cargo bay with her mouth open. 3 pairs of golden eyes stared back at her from between the supply crates. The cubs were pressed together in a tight ball of gray fur and nervous energy. Taiho was in front, trying to look brave. Mira was peeking out from behind him. Jisiok was almost completely hidden. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Mira made a small sound. It was soft and high, almost like a question. Una's heart was racing. She had 3 Velhari cubs on her shuttle. 3 children of the most dangerous predator species in the galaxy. The Velhari Council would think she kidnapped them. This could start a war, but then she looked at their faces. Really looked. And she saw something that surprised her. They were scared. These were not monsters. They were children. Lost, confused children who had made a very bad decision and were now very far from home. Una took a deep breath. She crouched down slowly, making herself smaller, less threatening. "Hello," she said gently. "My name is Una. Are you hungry?" The word hungry got their attention immediately. All 3 sets of ears stood straight up. Una smiled. Food was a universal language. She found some protein bars in her emergency supplies and offered them to the cubs. Taiho took his carefully, sniffing it before putting it in his mouth. His eyes went wide. He had never tasted anything like it. On Velher Prime, food was raw meat and nothing else. This strange rectangle was sweet and chewy and completely different. Mira grabbed hers and ate it in one bite. Jisiok ate his slowly, studying each piece before chewing. Una watched them eat and thought about what to do. She could not turn around. Her shuttle did not have enough fuel. She had to continue to the Terran Research Station, Haniel 7. She would deal with the problem when she got there. The journey took 6 more days. During that time, something strange happened. The cubs began to trust her. It started small. Myra would sit a little closer each day. Taiho would watch Yuna work on the shuttle systems and try to understand what she was doing. Jisiok would listen when she talked, even though he rarely spoke back. Yuna talked to them a lot. She told them about Earth, the human homeworld. She told them about oceans and forests and cities full of millions of people. She told them about her family's farm and the animals they raised. She told them about food. The cubs had never heard of farms before. On Velher Prime, you hunted or you starved. The idea that humans grew food on purpose, that they raised animals specifically to eat later, was shocking to them. You make prey? Taiho asked on the 4th day. His galactic command was rough, but improving quickly. The cubs were smart. Very smart. Yes, Yuna said. We grow plants and raise animals. We do not have to hunt every day. This is why you are soft, Taiho said. It was not an insult. It was an observation. You do not need claws. You do not need to fight. Yuna smiled. We have different kinds of strength. Taiho thought about this for a long time. When the shuttle finally arrived at Hanil 7, Yuna was worried. The station's captain was a strict man named Kang Do-yun. He would not be happy about this situation. She was right. Captain Kang stood in the landing bay with his arms crossed. His face was like stone. Behind him, a dozen crew members stared at the shuttle with nervous eyes. News had already spread. Everyone knew what was inside. Yuna walked down the ramp first. The cubs followed behind her, staying close to her legs. They could sense the fear in the room. All these humans were terrified of them. Taiho did not understand. Why were they afraid? He was just a cub. He could not hurt anyone yet. But then he remembered how the adult Velhari looked at humans. Like food. These humans probably thought he looked at them the same way. He tried to make himself smaller, less scary. Captain Kang looked at the cubs, then at Yuna. His eye twitched. Lieutenant, he said slowly, please explain why you have brought 3 predator children onto my station. Yuna stood at attention. Sir, they were stowaways. I did not discover them until I was too far from Velher Prime to return. They have imprinted on me during the journey. I am responsible for them. The captain closed his eyes. He looked like he was in pain. The Velhari Council has already sent a message. They are very unhappy. They think we kidnapped their young. I understand, sir. But the cubs need food and shelter. They are children. We cannot just send them back alone. Myra chose that moment to step forward. She looked up at Captain Kang with her big golden eyes. Her ears were flat against her head. She was trying so hard to look friendly and harmless. Please, she said in her small voice. We not mean trouble. We just want to learn about Mother Yuna's world. The captain stared at her. His stone face cracked just a little. Mother Yuna? He repeated. Yuna felt her face grow hot. They started calling me that on the journey. I tried to stop them. Captain Kang was quiet for a long moment. Then he let out a long breath. Fine. They can stay until we arrange proper transport back to Velher Prime. But you are responsible for them, Lieutenant. Feed them, keep them calm, and for the love of everything, do not let them eat any of my crew. Yuna saluted. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. She led the cubs through the station's corridors. Crew members pressed themselves against walls as they passed. Some ran away completely. The cubs did not seem to notice. They were too busy looking at everything. The lights, the metal walls, the strange machines. But then they reached the mess hall. And everything changed. Myra stopped walking. Her nose twitched. Her ears stood straight up. what is that smell?" She whispered, "Yun." I smiled. "That is the kitchen. That is where we make food." She pushed open the door, and the cubs saw something that would change them forever. A large room full of strange machines. Metal boxes that hummed. Surfaces covered with colorful objects. And in the center, a human woman in white clothes, cutting vegetables with a sharp knife. Her name was Byum Sujin, and she was the best cook on the station. She looked up and saw 3 predator cubs staring at her with wide eyes. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Sujin smiled and said, "Well, I guess I need to make extra tonight." And just like that, the cubs found their new favorite place in the universe. The kitchen became everything to the cubs. Every morning, they followed Yuna to the mess hall. Every afternoon, they sat in the corner and watched Sujin cook. Every evening, they ate food that made their minds spin with wonder. But nothing amazed them more than the refrigerator. It stood in the corner of the kitchen like a sleeping giant, 7 feet tall, made of shining metal, covered in frost. When it hummed, it sounded like the ice caves of home. When its door opened, cold air spilled out like winter breath. Taiho was the first to approach it. He had been watching Sujin for 3 days. He noticed that she kept going to this tall metal box. She would open its door, take something out, and close it again. What was inside? Why did she guard it so carefully? On the 4th day, Sujin opened the refrigerator and stepped away to answer a question from another crew member. Taiho saw his chance. He crept forward on silent paws and looked inside. His heart stopped. Shelves. Rows and rows of shelves. Each one covered with food. Meats wrapped in clear material. Vegetables in boxes. Fruits in bowls. Strange containers with mysterious contents. More food than Taiho had ever seen in one place. More food than his entire hunting party could eat in a month. And it was just sitting there, waiting. Myra and Jisiok appeared at his shoulders. They looked inside and made small sounds of shock. "What is this place?" Myra whispered. Her voice was shaking. "Cold Den," Jisiok said softly. He rarely spoke, but when he did, his words meant something. Like ice caves at home, but full of prey. Sujin returned and found 3 predator cubs standing frozen in front of her open refrigerator. Their eyes were huge. Their mouths were slightly open. They looked like they had seen something holy. She laughed and gently closed the door. "That is called a refrigerator. We keep food cold so it does not go bad." Taiho turned to look at her. His golden eyes were full of questions. "You keep food?" he asked slowly. "You do not eat right away?" "No, we store it. We save it for later." The concept broke something in Taiho's mind. On Velher Prime, you ate what you caught. Immediately. If you did not, another predator would take it. There was no storing. There was no saving. Every meal was earned with blood and effort. Every meal could be your last. But humans just kept food in a cold box. Like it was nothing. Like there would always be more. "How?" Myra asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. "How you have so much?" Sujin crouched down to be at eye level with the cubs. She was not afraid of them anymore. She had spent enough time around them to know they were just curious children. "Humans learned long ago that we could grow food," she explained. "We plant seeds and plants grow. We raise animals and they give us meat and milk and eggs. We make more than we need and we save the extra. This way, we never go hungry." The cubs were silent for a long moment. Then, Jisiok said something that surprised everyone. "Humans are clever hunters," he said. "You do not hunt prey. You hunt hunger itself. And you win." Sujin smiled. "I never thought of it that way. But yes, I suppose we do. From that day on, the refrigerator became sacred to the cubs. They called it the cold den. They treated it with respect and wonder. They asked Yuna endless questions about how it worked, how humans invented it, how long food could stay fresh inside. Yuna answered all their questions. She told them about electricity and insulation and temperature control. The cubs did not understand all of it, but they understood enough. Humans have used their minds to solve a problem that Velhari had never even tried to solve. The cubs began to see humans differently. Before, they had thought humans were weak. Soft bodies. No claws, no fangs. Easy prey. But now they understood that human strength was different. It was not in their bodies. It was in their minds. In their ability to plan ahead. In their patience and creativity. Taiho started following Sujin around the kitchen. He wanted to learn everything. How did she cut vegetables so fast? How did she know when meat was cooked properly? How did she combine different foods to make new flavors? Sujin was surprised at first. A predator cub wanted to learn cooking? It was strange. But she was a teacher at heart. She could not say no to someone who wanted to learn. She gave him a small knife and showed him how to hold it safely. She taught him about different spices and what they did to food. She let him taste things and watched his face as he discovered new flavors. Taiho's favorite was kimchi. The first time he smelled it, he jumped back in surprise. It was strong, powerful. It smelled like fire and battle and something he could not name. "What is this?" he demanded. Sujin grinned. "Kimchi. Vegetables, salt, spices, and thyme. It ferments for weeks. Gets stronger every day." Taiho took a small bite. His eyes went wide. His fur stood straight up. "This," he said seriously, "is warrior food." Sujin laughed so hard she had to hold the counter. Mira preferred sweet things. She loved fruit, especially strawberries. She would sit in the corner with a bowl of berries and eat them one by one, making happy sounds with each bite. The crew members who had been terrified of her started leaving small treats for her to find. She collected them like treasures. Jisiok was interested in the machines. The rice cooker fascinated him most. You put hard grains in one end, pushed a button, and soft fluffy rice came out the other end. It was like magic. He sat next to it every day and watched it work, trying to understand. Weeks passed. The cubs grew stronger and more confident. They learned Galactic Common quickly. They learned about human culture. They learned that humans were not weak at all. They were just strong in different ways. But trouble was coming. The Velhari Council had sent a message. An elder was coming to collect the cubs. She would arrive in 3 days. And she was not happy. Yuna read the message with a heavy heart. She had grown to love these cubs. They called her Mother Yuna. They followed her everywhere. They trusted her completely. How could she let them go? But they were not her children. They belonged to another world. Another people. She had no right to keep them. She looked at the cubs sleeping in the corner of the mess hall. They were curled together in a pile, their breathing slow and peaceful. Mira was smiling in her sleep. Taiho had his arm around his siblings protectively. Jisiok's nose was twitching, probably dreaming about the rice cooker. Yuna wiped a tear from her eye. Whatever happened next, she was glad she had known them. These strange, wonderful, curious children who had followed her across the stars. She just hoped the Elder would understand. Elder Kira's ship cut through space like a blade. She sat in her command chair, her scarred face twisted with anger. Her fur was pure black, marked with white lines where old wounds had healed. She had fought in 3 wars. She had killed enemies too numerous to count. She was one of the most respected warriors on Velar Prime, and someone had taken her people's children. The message from the human station had claimed it was an accident. The cubs had stowed away on a shuttle, The humans were caring for them until they could be returned. But Kira did not believe it. Humans were clever, tricky. They always had hidden reasons. She would get the truth. And if the humans had hurt those cubs in any way, she would make them pay. The station grew larger in her view screen. Haniel 7. A small research station on the edge of human space. Nothing impressive. Nothing threatening. Just metal and glass floating in the void. Kira bared her teeth. Size did not matter. Even small things could be dangerous. Her shuttle docked with a hiss of air. The door opened, and Kira stepped onto the human station. Crew members scattered before her like prey animals running from a hunter. Good. They should be afraid. Captain Kang was waiting for her in the corridor. He stood straight and tried to look calm, but Kira could smell his fear. She could hear his heart beating too fast. "Elder Kira," he said, bowing slightly. "Welcome to Haniel 7. The cubs are safe and healthy. They are in our mess hall. Take me to them, now." The captain led her through the station. More humans pressed themselves against walls as she passed. Kira ignored them. Her mind was focused on one thing only. They reached a large door. The captain stopped. "Before we go in," he said carefully, "I should warn you that the cubs have changed. They have learned many things here. They are different from when they left Velher Prime." Kira's eyes narrowed. "Different how?" "You will see." He opened the door. Kira stepped into the mess hall and froze. The kitchen was busy with activity. A human woman in white clothes was standing at a counter, cutting vegetables. That was normal. What was not normal was the small gray figure standing next to her. Myra. The cub was wearing a tiny white apron. She was holding a small knife. She was carefully cutting carrots into pieces, her tongue sticking out of her mouth in concentration. When she finished a piece, she would show it to the human woman, who would nod and smile. Kira could not move, could not speak, could not understand what she was seeing. A Volhari cub, wearing human clothes, doing human work, in a human kitchen. "Mother Yuna!" Mira called out suddenly. She had spotted someone across the room. "Look, my pieces are all the same size now." A young human woman walked over. She had kind eyes and a warm smile. She looked at Myra's carrots and made an impressed sound. "Perfect. You are getting so good at this. Sujin will make a great chef out of you yet." Myra beamed with pride. Her fur fluffed up happily. She looked nothing like a predator. She looked like a child who had just received praise from someone she loved. Kira finally found her voice. "What is this?" she demanded. Her voice echoed through the suddenly silent room. "What have you done to our children?" Everyone turned to look at her. Myra's eyes went wide. She dropped her knife and backed away, pressing herself against the human woman's legs. Taiho emerged from behind a large muddle box. He was bigger than Kira remembered. He stood straight and met her eyes without flinching. "Elder Kira," he said respectfully, "we did not expect you so soon. Obviously." Kira stalked forward. Her claws clicked against the floor. "Look at you. Look at all of you. Wearing their clothes. Doing their work. Have they broken your spirit so completely?" Yuna stepped forward, placing herself between Kira and the cubs. She was half the elder's size. She had no claws, no fangs, no chance in a fight. But she did not move. "With respect, Elder, no one has broken anything. The cubs have chosen to learn." "That is all? Chosen?" Kira laughed bitterly. "Children do not choose. They are guided, shaped. You have shaped them wrong." Jiziok appeared from the corner. He had been sitting by a strange white machine, watching it hum. Now he stood with his siblings, facing the elder. "Mother Yuna taught us," he said quietly. "But she did not force us. We wanted to learn." "Learn what?" "How to be soft. How to be prey." how to be strong in new ways. Kira's fur bristled. There was only one kind of strength. The strength of claws and teeth and blood. Everything else is weakness. Taiho shook his head slowly. We thought so too, before we came here. But we were wrong. He gestured around the kitchen. At the refrigerator. At the cooking equipment. At the food on the shelves. Humans do not hunt because they have no claws. They do not hunt because they do not need to. They have found a better way. They grow food. They store it. They share it. No human on this station has ever gone hungry. Can we say the same about Velher Prime? Kira opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. She thought of the long winters on her home world. The hunting parties that came back with nothing. The cubs who starved when prey was scarce. That is different, she said finally. We are predators. It is our nature. Nature can change, Myra said softly. She had come out from behind Yuna. Her fear was fading, replaced by something else. Determination. We do not have to abandon who we are. We can just add to it, learn new things, become more. Kira stared at the small cub. This was not the timid child who had left Velo Prime. This was someone new. Someone with ideas and opinions and courage. The council will never accept this, Kira said. They will see it as corruption, contamination. Then help us show them, Taiho said. He stepped forward, his golden eyes burning with intensity. Come, let us show you what we have learned. Eat with us. Listen to us. And then decide if we have become weaker or stronger. Kira looked at him for a long moment. This cub had the eyes of a leader. The voice of someone who would one day command respect. Perhaps the humans had taught him well after all. Very well, she said slowly. Show me. Sujin, who had been watching silently, suddenly smiled. Perfect timing, she said. Dinner is almost ready. Elder Kira, do you like spicy food? Kira raised one eyebrow. I am a Velhari warrior. I do not fear anything. Sujin's smile grew wider. We will see about that. She placed a bowl of kimchi jjigae in front of the elder. The spicy red stew steamed in the cold air. It smelled of fire and fermented vegetables and something Kira could not name. She took a bite. Her eyes went wide. Her fur stood straight up. Heat exploded across her tongue, stronger than anything she had ever tasted. And then, slowly she began to smile. This, she said, is warrior food. Across the table, Taiho grinned. I told you, he said to Sujin. All Velhari say the same thing. For the first time since she arrived, Elder Kira laughed. Perhaps these humans were more interesting than she thought. The standoff lasted 3 hours. Elder Kira had eaten with the cubs. She had tasted human food. She had watched them move around the kitchen with confidence and skill. She had listened to their stories about the coal bin and the rice cooker and the human woman named Sujin, who taught them about fire and flavor. Now she sat in the mess hall, thinking. The cubs stood before her. Taiho in front, calm and steady. Mira to his left, small but determined. Jiziok to his right, silent but watching everything. Behind them stood Yuna, her hands clasped behind her back. Captain Kang waited by the door. Sujin was in the kitchen, pretending to clean but really listening to every word. The council has ordered you to return, Kira said finally. They want you to complete your predator training, to become proper Velhari warriors. Taiho nodded slowly. We understand, but we do not want to go. The words hung in the air like a challenge. No Velhari cub had ever refused an elder's command. It simply was not done. Kira's eyes narrowed. You would disobey the council? You would shame your families? We do not mean to disobey, Myra said quickly. We want to go home. We miss Velher Prime, We miss the snow and the ice caves and the hunting grounds. Then what is the problem? HFY Orcs stepped forward. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but clear. We want to bring what we learned with us. Kira tilted her head. Explain. Taiho took a deep breath. This was the moment. Everything depended on what he said next. Elder Kira, you have seen what humans can do. They do not hunt every day. They do not starve in winter. They do not lose cubs to hunger when prey is scarce. They have solved problems that we have faced for thousands of years. He gestured around the kitchen. This is not weakness. This is wisdom. Humans did not become soft because they stopped hunting. They became free. Free to learn. Free to create. Free to become more than just predators. Kira said nothing. Her face was impossible to read. Taiho continued. We are not rejecting our nature. We are expanding it. A Velhari who can hunt and grow food is stronger than one who can only hunt. A Velhari who can preserve meat for winter is stronger than one who must hunt in every blizzard. He met Kira's golden eyes directly. You are one of the greatest warriors on Velhar Prime. You have killed more enemies than anyone can count. But how many cubs have you watched starve because prey was scarce? Something flickered in Kira's eyes. Pain. Memory. Loss. Too many, she said softly. Then let us change that. Myra's voice was passionate. Let us bring human knowledge back to our people. Let us learn to preserve food. To grow things in the ice. To make sure no Velhari cub ever goes hungry again. HFY Orcs spoke again. Mother Yuna taught us that strength is not only in killing. It is in protecting. In creating. In making sure everyone in your pack survives. He looked at Kira with eyes too old for his young face. Is that not what a true warrior does? Protect the pack? Kira was silent for a long time. The cubs waited. Yuna waited. Everyone waited. Finally, the elder stood. She walked slowly toward the cubs, her massive form blocking the light. Mira trembled, but did not run. Taiho stood his ground. Kira stopped directly in front of them. She looked down at these three small figures who had traveled across the stars and come back changed. You speak like warriors who have seen 100 battles, she said. Not like cubs who have barely passed their first molt. She turned to look at Yuna. The human woman met her gaze without fear. You did this, Kira said. It was not a question. They did it themselves, Yuna replied. I just answered their questions. Kira was quiet for another moment. Then she did something that shocked everyone in the room. She laughed. It was not a small laugh. It was deep and full and genuine. It shook her whole body and echoed off the metal walls. 3 cubs followed a human to her kitchen, she said between laughs. And they discovered something that all of Velhar Prime's warriors never found. A way to defeat our oldest enemy. She wiped a tear from her eye. Not other predators. Not the cold. But hunger itself. She looked at the cubs with new respect in her eyes. The council will not understand. Not at first. They will see your new ideas as corruption. As weakness. Taiho's shoulders slumped. Then there is no hope. I did not say that. Kira smiled, showing her fangs. The council is not the only power on Velhar Prime. The elders have influence too. I'm very old and very stubborn. She placed one massive paw on Taiho's shoulder. Go home. Learn your hunting skills as the council demands. Become the warriors they want you to be. Her smile widened. But also remember everything the humans taught you. Practice in secret if you must. Find others who think like you do. And when you are older, when you have proven yourselves, come to me. She looked at all 3 cubs. We will change Velhar Prime together. 3 years later. The first Velhari restaurant opened on Velhar Prime. It was called the Warm Den. It stood in the capital city, built from ice and stone, but heated inside like a human kitchen. The sign above the door showed a simple image, a refrigerator. Chef Taiho stood in his kitchen, preparing meals for the evening crowd. He had grown tall and strong, a proper Valhari warrior. But his claws were more often used for cutting vegetables than fighting. His fangs were more often bared in smiles than snarls. Mira greeted guests at the door. She had a gift for making people feel welcome. Even the grumpiest old warriors softened when she smiled at them. She remembered every regular customer's favorite dish and always had it ready before they asked. Jisiok worked in the back room, managing their cold storage system. He had studied human technology for years and built a preservation system that worked even in the frozen winters of Valor Prime. Food could now last for months instead of days. Cubs no longer starved when hunting was poor. And in the center of the restaurant, in a place of honor, stood an old Terran refrigerator. It had been shipped all the way from Haniel 7, donated by the crew as a gift. Above it hung a plaque written in both Korean and Valhari script. The greatest hunt is not for food, but for knowledge. The greatest strength is not in taking, but in sharing. Ambassador Yuna visited every year on the anniversary of the restaurant's opening. She was no longer a lieutenant. Her work with the Valhari had made her famous. Now she traveled between worlds, helping different species understand each other. But she always made time for the warm den. When she arrived that night, 3 massive figures rushed to greet her. They were not cubs anymore. They were fully grown predators, taller than any human, with claws that could cut through metal and teeth that could crush bone. And they still called her Mother Yuna. Taiho hugged her so tightly she could not breathe. Myra bounced around them, talking excitedly about new dishes she had created. Jisiok stood back and smiled, but his tail was wagging with happiness. Elder Kira watched from across the room. She was older now, her fur more gray than black. But her eyes were still sharp, and her smile was still full of fangs. She raised a glass of fermented berry drink toward Yuna. "To the human who started a revolution," she said. "With a refrigerator." Yuna laughed and raised her own glass. "To the cubs who were brave enough to follow," she replied, "and smart enough to learn." Later that night, after the restaurant closed, Yuna sat in the kitchen with the cubs. They were eating leftover kimchi jjigae and talking about old times. "Do you remember when you first saw the cold den?" Yuna asked. Myra laughed. "I thought it was magic. I really did. I thought humans had trapped winter inside a box." "I thought it was a trap," Taiho admitted. "I kept waiting for something to jump out and attack us." Jisiok was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I remember thinking that I wanted to understand how it worked. I wanted to learn everything." He looked at Yuna with those calm, wise eyes. "Thank you," he said simply, "for teaching us." Yuna felt tears prick her eyes. She reached out and touched his paw. "Thank you for following me to the kitchen," she said. "You 3 taught me more than I ever taught you." Outside, the frozen wind howled across Valhar Prime. Snow piled against buildings. The temperature dropped to deadly levels. But inside the warm den, it was warm and bright. Food sizzled on the stove. Laughter echoed off the walls. And 3 predator cubs who had followed a human across the stars sat together with their mother, full and happy and home. When other species asked how humanity had won the friendship of the galaxy's most feared predators, the answer was always the same. They opened the refrigerator, and they changed the world.